When people come to Elk Island Lodge, we try our very best to do everything really good. I don't think that we're perfect. I don't think any industry is perfect, but we all try as hard as we can to give the guest a really, really good trip. And the staff, they do an amazing job at making that happen. We have some of the best fishing in northern Manitoba for northern pike, walleye, lake trout, and brook trout.
I can't believe how many fish are in this lake. The average size that we were hitting on the pike were somewhere probably 34 to 38, 39 inches. Those are massive, nice, beautiful pike. They're voracious. They just keep eating. The takes on the fly were mind-numbing. You know, when a 39, 40-inch pike comes directly out of the water that hits the fly, you got to sit down. It's not a fact of if you're going to actually catch a pike. It's just a fact of how big it's going to be and how many. I found myself actually staring at the river without a fly rod in my hand and just taking in the beauty of God's river. You got to go there just to see it. It is God's river. It has to be. When you see God's River brook trout, trophy brook trout, that is 21, 22 inches, somewhere around there. And that seems to be the size that a lot of these are, somewhere in around that 19 to 22 inches. They get bigger. It's amazing the emotions, how your emotions begin to swell when you finally get that to the net. You finally have a chance just to hold this work of art.
Look at the fins on that. That is a beauty. Look at the spots.
Mother Nature, you are something else. What you've done out here at God's River.
Hey everybody, Mark Melnyk here from the New Fly Fisher. Thanks for joining us on another Wednesday night live. I'm super excited to be able to, do some introductions for the first time in a long time for somebody that we've been working with for years. Really proud and honored to be able to welcome Jeff Parks from Calm Waters Fly Fishing to the New Fly Fisher team. Jeff has been a staple in the Southern Ontario guiding industry for years, fishing all kinds of tributaries of our Great Lakes. And, he started emailing a couple years ago and wouldn't stop and just wouldn't quit. And we're happy to welcome him as one of the new hosts of the New Fly Fisher television show starting last year, or this season that's airing right now. Jeff, welcome. Glad you're on the team, man. This is absolutely fantastic to have you on board.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, it's been a trip. I tell you, this filming some of these and being a host rather than being a guide. I know when I first met you guys, Bill Spicer was the host, and I was you did a show on Calm Waters Fly Fishing, which I really appreciated, and we had a blast working on some brown trout. But it was just it's such a different thing now that I'm a host and I'm not the guide. So I've completely switched it over. So now I'm sitting back and listening to some really fantastic guides telling me what to do. So that's a real neat thing. I'm not on that saddle anymore when we're working on the shows. It's awesome.
So that's a really unique sort of look at your business, is that the guide is now being guided. How have you found the transition of, trout tributaries like the back of your hand? How have you found being guided by other guides as a guide? Is that transition easy for you?
Well, no, it took a bit, actually. It took a bit. It's like, it's like a doctor being the patient, that kind of, because, usually doctors aren't great patients. And I sort of was thinking that same kind of thing when I was, as a guide, you're taking control. You're letting your customer do what they want to do, but you're silently and quietly guiding them, hopefully into a great day, and teaching them some things. So I had to make sure that when I was on the boat, especially we're talking on God's Lake with Elk Island Lodge there. My guide, Tamaz, just an amazing young fellow, 28, I think 28, 29. But the knowledge that this fella had was unbelievable. And it took me maybe about an hour on our trip, because I was wanting to do a few things. And then he looked at me, he said, well, if you go over here, like he did it kind of the way a professional should have. He gently pushed me to what I should be doing. And then actually since that first hour, I love being guided. It's nice being on this side. So I love it.
So one of the great things I love about our sport is the fact that the day you stop learning is the day that you need to hang up your fly rod. And for a guide to be able to, and that's one of the things that I do when I host a TV show, is I literally say to every single guide on every single river and every single lake, how do you want me to fish this?
Yeah.
And they look at me like I'm crazy. Like I used to guide in Northern Ontario,
Sure.
like on the far north, up in Brook, Trout country, way up north. And they, people think, oh, you've guided before, but every single river, every single lake, every single body of water fishes differently. And the locals know exactly what's working at whatever given time that you happen to be there. So to go in there and say, oh, I'm a guide, I know how to catch fish.
Yeah.
Bullshit, if you ask me.
Right. Well, and that's the worst thing I could do is, I didn't even let Tamaz know that I was a guide for the first day. Because there's that thing, you come in there, you go, yeah, well, I'm a guide, so I know everything. And that's sort of like what they're going to think is, oh, great, we got some guide who probably thinks he knows everything. And I really, that's not how I actually feel. I always feel you can, like, fly fishing is like our whole fly fishing life from, if you pick it up at 18 or whatever, it's like opening up a book. Some people are learning how to fly fish, so that's the first chapter, but you'll never get to the end of the book of fly fishing, if you know what I mean. Like your life, you're always learning in fly fishing, especially going up to Northern Ontario. Or Northern Manitoba. I've never been there before. Right. And these, I mean, I'm did a lot of stuff here. Obviously most of my fishing, probably 90%, has been Southern Ontario, South Central Ontario. Working for steelhead, working for smallmouth bass, obviously brown trout, resident rainbow trout, that kind of, all those good basic stuff that we guide for. And that's, and brook trout also. But my brook trout, my biggest, I think it was 13, 14 inches that we got here. And it was a big one. I mean, in my view. So when you come into Manitoba and you're going into Northern Manitoba, you're getting up there and you're looking at the trees, you're looking at the everything there. It's not like it's intimidating. It's really different. So you really,
that's the point, is that it's different. Here's a comment from Ty Halleck. Ty Halleck is he's a guide. Once you're a guide, you're always a guide. Ty has guided me numerous times on the North Platte in Casper, Wyoming. We've had a ton of fun together. Ty has just retired from guiding. Well, retired from guiding, you never really do, I don't think.
No.
And he's now working for Scientific Anglers. But his point is brilliant, that it is a hard transition as a guide to be guided. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to get into the nitty gritty of why we're here. And we're going to talk about Elk Island Lodge and the fact that you were able to go to Northern Manitoba as a Southern Ontario guide and absorb everything that lodge is all about, from flying in, your first experience catching giant northern pike, to world-class brook trout. In a nutshell, let's talk a little bit about Elk Island Lodge and what your thoughts are about it in an overall setting. Yeah,
well, like the whole trip right from the beginning was a trip. if to coin a phrase, as in, you fly to Winnipeg, and there's some great hotels in right by the airport in Winnipeg, and lots of restaurants. It's just like being anywhere in North America. And the next morning, you get into a quite a large plane, and I think you leave around 9 o'clock, and you're basically at Elk Island Lodge at 10:30, and you're going up. I don't know. I don't even know. I should know this. Maybe 500 kilometers up. Like it's a long way. So it's an hour and 15-minute flight north. But the cool thing about it, which makes it such a even though you are flying, you've taken a flight to Winnipeg, and then you're taking another flight to God's Lake, to Elk Island Lodge. It's just that the runway is 300 yards from the lodge, and they got just this huge runway. And you land there, and you get out of the plane. You meet Greg Dick, who is the owner, just a lovely fellow. And you can just see he is so passionate about his lodge. He absolutely and we'll talk a little bit more about Greg and the lodge, obviously. But you get there, you meet Greg. Everybody's grabbing the bags for you. We met Tamaz, my guide, or our guide, I should say, Ryan, our photographer, and myself. And you walk with him. He shows you where you're staying. And that's probably by about 11 o'clock. You're getting settled. You're putting everything together. From there, you get onto one of their boats. They got some great. I think they're 18-foot with powered by Yamaha 400 or 40s. Not 400s.
Oh, that's
I was going to say they're fast boats. No, 40 horsepowers. And by about 1 o'clock, 12:30, you're already into your boat, a 42-inch pike. So that's your first day. Your first morning. They don't waste any time. They get you because they've already fed you on the plane. So you've got a full belly. You've just plunked your stuff down, and you're out on God's Lake. And we went for northern pike. I said it in that video, that intro video. It's not a fact of if you're going to catch one. You sight fish everywhere when you're there in some of these bays. It's just how big it's going to be. Right. And you know what it's like when you're trying to get that big one. The smaller pike, smaller as in 36, 37, 38 inch, are the faster ones. So they're going to get that before that 46 inch. Right. And there's trophy pike everywhere in those bays. And so that's the really cool thing about as your first day, your arm is sore. By the time you get back around 5 o'clock, your arm is already sore from hauling in some of these big gators.
So we've talked that there's northern pike up there. There's brook trout. There's whitefish. There's a lake trout. There's a multitude of species. Let's take a look at what Tomas has to say about the seasons of northern pike at Elk Island Lodge.
So we're here at God's Lake at Elk Island Lodge, fishing for northern pike in these shallow water bays. It's late spring, early summertime, so the pike are in these shallow 3 to 4 foot bays, warming up, feeding on the little bait fish that are in here, also in some of the rivers and creeks. But it is a bit of a transition period as they are starting to move off to the rocks, deeper weed patches, so it's nice to have both a floating line and a sink tip line so you're able to fish both locations. So as the season develops and the weed patches get taller and bigger, the pike really move to those deeper weed patches, about 8 to 15 foot. They stay there for most of the summer up into the beginning of early fall, and then they move up back into the shallows. The average size here on God's Lake are very, very healthy, mid-30s pike, and they're always very chunky, very well fed, and there's always a good chance of getting a trophy in almost every bay we stop at.
Our afternoon promised to be truly epic as we had tied on some topwater flies to cast, searching for explosive takes on top.
That is a big one right there. Oh, wow. What a hit, a topwater hit on this big northern pike here. God's Lake. This thing just demolished that fly, that tube fly, and it's a good size.
So one of the great things about fishing in northern Manitoba, and I've had the pleasure of being able to do so as well, is oftentimes, depending on the body of water that you're fishing, what you experience in the springtime, right after ice out, where you're sight casting for big northerns in shallow water, dark bottoms, tends to last all season long. There will be times in July and August when those fish will go a little deeper, but they will always come back up to those dark bottom flats to feed. Is that what you experienced at Elk Island Lodge at God's Lake?
Yeah, well, yeah, big time. I think we were there. Our first day was June 24th.
Right.
And when you think June 24th, say back in, states or Southern Ontario and wherever you are, you're thinking that weather is starting to climb. You're looking now at 25 degrees Celsius, or you're looking at 78, 77, 76 degrees, and it's starting to climb and climb, and that's what you're getting. But because our first day was around, I think, 22 degrees Celsius, somewhere in around that 70-ish mark, 71 or whatever Fahrenheit, that was one of our warmest days up there. So, but the nights get cool, so that the water stays cool, and these pike are coming into the shallows to warm up, from those nights. And that last shot where that northern pike came right out of the water on that tube fly there. Again, that was not the big one that was looking at. There was two of them that were probably at least 40 some odd, 45 inch. And this smaller one, being the 38 inch, was the one that I guess couldn't stand it any longer and came right out of the water at it. So that's the neat thing about that pike fishing. And I know we met a lot of the people at Elk Island Lodge, a lot of Canadians, a heck of a lot of Americans getting out of their country, having a lot of fun up in Manitoba there. And, a lot of the guys were throwing spoons, conventional, there was some fly fishermen, but a lot of the guys were going for the lake trout also, and they were trolling or jigging for them, and especially the walleye. There's some huge walleye in there, so they were all looking forward to that. And the neat thing about the guides there is that if you're a conventional fisherman, sure, of course, they know the conventional with the spoons and rappellas and or rapala, whatever you want to say, that kind of it. They know that, but they also can switch to fly. So. Right. They know they're fly fishing also. They're and I also said it in the show, is that what I really found is that we got to know Tomas so well because we're on the boat with him. But afterwards, and when you're chatting about other guests, you get to know all the other guides also. And I really found I was so impressed with the guys, because God's River and God's Lake are huge. And these guys are trained to keep their patrons safe. It's just like, it really is as simple as that. They just, they know that if the weather is bad, they're going to hit a certain bay. They're not going to take you out to the middle or whatever. Plus they know if the bay they were going to, or the place they were going to is too dangerous to go to because of the winds, they'll take you to another spot because there's just fish everywhere. So it's cool. It's a really neat professional guiding business that is run there.
That's fantastic. So you also had a wonderful session with another fish, and I'm going to play that for you right now. Oops.
Decided we should take a break for a day to cast flies for some of the magnificent northern pike that God's Lake has to offer. We had also heard from the other guests about the delicious shore lunch that is provided while out hunting these incredible freshwater predators. Needless to say, I am again super excited to get out on the water. I am in awe of our guide Tomas. His knowledge of both God's River and God's Lake is absolutely insane. There are prop busting structures around every corner, and he knows where they are. He also knows where the fish reside, but more importantly, he knows where they feed. The guides at Elk Island Lodge are trained to know their water and to keep their clients safe. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, fishy, fishy, fishy.
This pike hit that twice. First time he missed it. Second time was a charm. I thought he was bigger. Wow, beauty. And if you're lucky enough to actually get a hit, you do not want to do a trout set up to the right or pull it up. What you want to do is you want to do a strip set. And a strip set basically is when that fish hits, we have one hook, barbless. You take your left hand, if you're a right hand caster, and you pull once and pull twice to dig that into the mouth. And that should be enough to actually allow you then to lift up your rod tip. So we're using 9-foot rods, 9 weights here today. And you can also see the reel that we're using. It's a large arbor with a good drag system. You don't want to have it completely locked, but you need to have the drag system quite tight. And when these fish, when they take off and they come back at the boat, you need to have this large arbor reel to pick up a lot of line. And they got to be able to do that very, very quickly. That's the nature of northern pike fishing. Follow, come on, take it, take it, take it. Gotcha.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Don't spit that out. Changed from yellow, went red, red and black, and this thing just came out of the depths. See if I can get him over to you, Tamaz. Here he comes. There he comes. Nicely done.
That ain't that one we saw, but still a good one.
Wow.
And what amazes me is the thickness. Like that was not, I mean, that was a 38, which is a great fish in anybody's books. But when you've got 45s and 48 swimming around with you, and those guys come in, that's like fishing a permit and a pinfish comes over and takes your fly, right?
Well, exactly. Oh, no, and I think you heard me saying, "Come on, take it, take it." You say that all day because you can see them coming after, and you see the big one just like a submarine, just sort of working its way over slowly, and then somebody comes out of the some little guy, 38, 39-year-old comes, or 39 inch comes right out of nowhere and takes it. So that's the fun part of it. I mean, sight fishing, you can't beat sight fishing,
So Jeff, before we move on to brook trout, which are my favorite. I mean, right there is a brook trout glass etching from an old friend of the show named Pete Leduc. He sent that to me as a gift a number of years ago. Ty Halleck has another question about equipment. What size do you recommend for these northern pike? I mean, so the issues is that you're throwing streamers and you're throwing poppers, which are very different. And some streamers this big, some of them are this big. Poppers the same. So what do you recommend for? Let's go through the entire pike fly setup.
Sure. The large arbor, I think you saw that clip at the end. You need to have a large arbor. We were in pretty shallow water. I mean, it couldn't have been any more when we were fishing. It wasn't any more than 6 feet deep in some of these places. So it was just floating lines that we were using, and of course a bite wire. I think I had it was already a pre-made bite wire that was set up. I think 30 inches. Of 50 pound, and I think it was about 14 inches of of just a metal piece there to a swivel. But that's really all you need. You need a 9 weight, and I mean you could maybe get away with an 8 weight, but I really believe you'd be undergunned. 10 weight you'd be too much. I'd probably kill your arm doing that with all these big flies. But 9 weight is the way to go. I mean, I've got, I don't know if you can see that. That's one of the flies that worked really well. So it's big, but it's not big. This was not one of the heavy ones, mind you. When I was away just a little bit ago in Bahamas, the barracuda were all over this one. That was a lot of fun. This one, this one here though, got a lot of love with this red. So when you have your 9 foot 9 weight and your floating line to match that. You're going to want some pretty good sizing, but you want to have, just like anything, you want to have some different colors. We did you got to have something with a red collar there. I mean, it's just blood in their mind, gills or blood or
Screams
something.
gills, right? Screams gills.
Yeah, it's that. So I think any color, I think a lot of things would work here. But black, the reds, the greens, the bait fish patterns with a red collar really worked well. And again, you have to bring some top water stuff to you. So this here right here is was a tube fly that really worked well. But you can see all this movement here. This was really, it must have looked like a duck or something to them. That really worked well. And you can bring some other fun pieces like this with the foam heads and whatever. They're going to get chewed up a little bit, but you can see the size. But when these get wet, they're pretty heavy. So you may want to bring a sink tip with you, but when we were there in June, end of June there, early July, we didn't need it at all. And if you don't need that weight, if you don't have to throw that weight, then save your shoulder, save your arm, and that kind of a thing. So
right.
And
so how did you find being in northern Manitoba? So the further north you get, the smaller the trees are, right? And you've got more dynamic rolling hills in the landscape of where you're fishing, right? Did you find that wind was an issue for you because of the lower scrub, or were you able to be sheltered because of the bays on God's Lake?
It was windy as heck when we were there. But yeah, Tomas again knows his bays. So he was trying to get us, being of course that we were fly guys, into an area where we weren't going to get hooked in the back of the head. So right. It was a little bit more. I mean, you're not in Kansas anymore when you're up there. It's a different world. I mean, at one point, when we started talking about the river, but you're seeing a full bull moose crossing a river that is like Niagara River, Niagara Falls, like rapids that are just above the falls at Niagara Falls. If anybody's been there, are unbelievable. And this moose was crossing a river like that. Right. And it's just the things you see are unbelievable. And I just have to say one thing before we move off of Pike was there's the two F's in fly fishing, or in the world. To me, is you get fly fishing and you've got food. And I'm not sure what I like more, the fly fishing or the food. And if you get a place that gives you that at both places, that's pretty cool. And it was the shore lunch that all the fellas, because a lot of the guys just went to go pike fishing and lake trout and walleye. And so when you're doing that, you're getting a shore lunch. And they all talked about the shore lunch. And so when we went for our pike day, and Tomas made this pike. The pike that I've had, that I've tried to clean, or anybody that I've cleaned, is so bony, stinky. I mean, it's okay, but there wasn't one bone in this northern pike at all in our meal. And the preparation, again, it's in the show, which I was so glad to see that we put it in there. The preparation was phenomenal. You're on this cool little rock out of the middle of nowhere. You're building your own fire. You're cooking the oil. You're getting the potatoes going. You're getting the onions going. You're getting the pike going, and it's to die for. Even if anybody doesn't like fish, because I have a confession to make. I'm a fly fishing guide, and I don't eat freshwater fish. And I like saltwater fish, but I've never really been a trout guy. I mean, walleye, of course, is pretty good, but pike, I've never really have a palate for it. But this was probably one of my best meals I've ever had, and it was because of the experience and how good he cleaned it and how fantastic it tasted.
Well, that's it too, right? Cold water, a professional cleaning job, and cooked properly.
Yeah.
I would challenge anybody that has a northern pike in a frying pan under those circumstances to put them up against a jumbo perch or a walleye, and you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference. I've eaten a ton of all of those, and if they're done right, you can't tell the difference. In northern pike, you get them, 26 inches. That's the perfect eating size. You leave those big girls for for reproduction.
Yep.
And it's just fantastic. Now, let's get to the good stuff.
Got it.
Let's talk brook trout.
Let's talk brook trout.
So you've mentioned God's Lake a lot, right?
Yeah.
But there's also God's River. Tell me about what God's River is.
It's huge. I really when I got there, I wasn't expecting. I mean, I watched Bill Spicer's show that he did on when he came up here. I think it was back in 2018 or something. And I saw the river, and it looks fantastic, the river. But when you're actually there, and you're in it, and the water was so high. So they had huge runoff in the springtime because there was so much snow in the spring, and huge runoff. And then they had massive rains. So the CMS, or the cubic meters per second, or the feet per second, was incredible. I mean, you would throw your fly in there, the fly was whipping by you so fast that you'd think, well, I don't even think I got that in front of a fish. Because the water was going so fast, and it probably was 2 to 3 feet higher than normal time in June 24th. But the beauty of it, there's rapids, there's swirling water, there's I can't say, like, there's calm water, but that calm water in this river, it's moving, like it's really moving. So it's the most beautiful river I've seen so far. It's phenomenal. And wow. You know, we have so many rivers here in Southern Ontario. I've been to quite a few rivers in Colorado, and they're all beautiful. And you know, I mean, the Colorado, you can't beat some of the Colorado rivers, and those they're just, you know, you get a blue sky out there, and they're just fantastic. But when you see God's River, it's so massive, and you seem so small. You just feel like a tiny little speck, thinking, how am I going to find a fish in this?
Hey, Jeff, let's take a look at this.
Okay.
Ready?
Okay.
The main dock, you begin to realize the solid professionalism that Elk Island Lodge offers. Float planes are at the ready to transport you to multiple destinations on God's River for trophy brook trout. A virtual flotilla of aluminum boats equipped with 40 horsepower Yamaha motors also are set and ready for fishing on God's Lake. This lake possesses enormous northern pike, lake trout, and walleye, all obtainable for all types of anglers. Today we are boarding a float plane to take us to God's River for the opportunity to locate and fish for huge brook trout. I'm so excited to get started.
We can expect some nice brook trout out there, very colorful, around that average size, 18, 19, with quite a few trophy fish mixed in. They're going to be biting those nice white flies, hopefully again, just in that fast current, just on the edges of the feeding lanes.
Awesome. I can't wait to get out there. It's going to be an absolute blast. God's River, what a place. There's so much good water here that it's really hard to determine where to fish. I mean, realistically, there's about 40 places we could have stopped. But we stopped here because we got some oxygen, and these trout, of course, trout love oxygen, but there's lots of boulders in this moving water right here, and they like to come out, ambush out of these rocks at these flies. So when you're looking at a place to stop and to fish, look for those big boulders, look for lots of oxygen if you're fishing for trout, and see if you can pinpoint them in some of these ambush places. Boy, this is great water right here, eh?
They like to wait on the current line, right where
Yeah.
that slack needs
You
to
got
pass.
it. Nice. I like it.
It's super high this year. Usually all these rocks are way out of the water.
Try to help you get into more fish and hook more fish. There's an old saying that says the person or the angler that keeps his fly in the water longer is going to catch the most fish. And it sounds kind of basic, but a lot of people tend to cast too much and not have the fly stay in the water as long. And what you need to do, if you can, because what happens, the fish may be chasing it as soon as it hits the water. And if you've got a drift for about 20, 30 feet, they may be chasing it. But as soon as that fly stops and it begins to rise at your end of your drift, that's a lot of times when they're going to hit it. So keep it in the water at that point as long as you can. And a lot of times too, almost skid it on the top of the surface. They may think it's just a rising bug. You know, it might be coming up, it might be a mayfly, a large mayfly, they don't know what it is, or it might be a wounded minnow coming to the surface. Keep it in the water longer, keep it on the dangle as long as you can, the dangle meaning right at the end, and then lift it to the surface, and basically have it so it's skidding along the surface. That's gonna help and keep it in the water longer. Well, we finally got one. We've been waiting a little bit. We finally went down to black, and we've been working on white, yellows, greens, you name it. Black's the winner for this fish today. We've been working hard for them. They've been finicky, nice and sunny, and we're finally getting one to the net. What a fight this one was. Wow, what a fish. That's been a long time coming for today on that one. We finally landed one on a black leech with a little bit of red fleck. And what a day this has been.
Well,
I
that gives
gotta
me
go back. The
All right.
when you're looking at that river there, and any of that, like nearing the end, just before we got that fish, you could see those rapids that were racing down, and we were just above those rapids. That water looks calm, but it's just humming. It's ripping through there. So that's and that was our first real chance of really working the brook trout there. And I really found that you had to. I mean, you know how they say, you know, if to catch a fish, you need to mend. Well, there's three things you need to do to catch a fish. The first one is mend. The second one is mend, and the third one is mend. You had to be a mending fool. You had to get that fly line up so that fly basically somehow got to the bottom in that. And we had full sinking lines on, so that really helped. But sending it way up above the boat, really mending it and giving it some movement as it's going through, because I truly believe that you could actually see some of them chasing them, and it's not was one or two, it was like three or four. It's almost like it's almost like smallmouth bass fishing. They wow. seem to hide behind the rocks. They seem to ambush just like smallies do. They seem to hang out in pods like smallies do, and they're aggressive, and they just if one wants it, they'll try to get it from the other. So it's almost like you're smallmouth bass fishing, but you're getting these jewels and on the end of your rod. It was really cool. So that whole thing about keeping the fly in the water longer and skidding it along the top, getting it near in that film, they're hitting it anywhere in any column. It wasn't just film, it wasn't bottom, wasn't middle. We had no idea. You were just throwing a lot of stuff at them.
So one of the things that's interesting about fishing big brook trout, I mean, and you're being from Southern Ontario, you're used to 14, 15, 16-inch fish, which are trophies here
right.
or there. But the fish that are in the north of Canada, and I'm talking Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, Labrador, right? Those fish are big. They grow to gargantuan proportions.
Yeah.
I've guided a 24.5-inch brook trout before.
Nice.
But what's interesting about those fish is that they don't have the same attitude as the fish in the South. Whether you're in the Southern United States or in Southern Canada, they don't have that attitude, because I've seen 20 inch to 23-inch brook trout swimming alongside 45-inch northern pike without a worry in their mind. So that tells me that those fish are apex predators in their waters,
Right.
and they will chase and eat giant flies. I caught a fish in the Albany River system in Ontario, or I guided a fish in the Albany River system in Ontario that barfed up a 8-inch walleye.
Wow.
So talk to me a little bit about the difference between brook trout in northern Manitoba and what you're used to in arguably the lower 50.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's a complete there. I don't even know if there's any similarities. I mean, you're back home in the smaller creeks, you are skidding along some nice small dries for these things, and these small little 8, 10, 12 inch are hitting a skidded fly, so they do like them skidded. So similarity a little bit also is that these large guys like a fly skidded along the surface also, so they seem to like that quite a bit.
They're protein hunters, right? Their feeding window is short.
Yeah.
So if you throw something big and meaty, whether it's a giant streamer or a big mouse or a lemming or something like that,
right,
they're gonna jump on it like crazy.
And the neat thing is, I found they weren't afraid of the boat, because you'd be bringing the fly in, again, just trying to keep it in as long as you can, and just bringing it in, and right beside the boat, you could just see them snapping at it. I'm not saying that that happened all the time, but there's about at least 3 or 4 times that right up by the boat, the motor's going, because we're trying to hold it in the current. They're not scared of the motor. They're not scared of anything. Or they're not even aware, or they don't really care.
Yeah.
So that was the really neat thing about it. It's just, but the thing, you when they hit that fly, they just like any predator of a FIP, they just demolish it. And you just know you don't want to be a bait fish in that river, because you're just going to get completely demolished. And then they use the current, and I'm not saying they're not strong at all, but they use their current to their benefit. And in God's River, when you see, there's a lot of pocket water. And when I say pocket water, normally when you think of pocket water back home in Ontario, you get a nice big rock and a nice little pool just floating over. But some of these rocks are massive. So you've got some pocket water that they're sitting in, but then it goes from that pocket water a little slower, goes into some really, really fast, and then into some slow and fast and slow and fast and slow. And these things are just, they really do. I think I said it earlier. It's like holding on to a bulldog who's seen a squirrel on the other side of the street. You can't hold it back. It just wants to go, and that's what these fish are like. They just go.
So let's talk equipment. What were you using to catch these brook trout?
We were using 6 weights, and you can get away with a 6 weight, but you could use a 7 weight also. Don't feel that a 7 weight at all is overgunned. But we had 6 weights, and 6 weight, 7 weight. You could use an 8 weight. That might be a little too much. It's nice to have that feel with a 7 or a 6 weight. That's what we were using. We were using full intermediate sinking lines to get it down. You'll want to bring, as you get into July and a little bit of the warmer temperatures, I think there's a little bit more activity on the surface with some of the mayflies. So I think we were there just before a lot of that was happening. So you'll want to bring a floating line with you, nice floating line that you can keep that fly up onto the surface and hit some of that. So you'll want a full sinking line on a 6 or a 7 weight. You'll want a full floating line on that. And realistically, when you start thinking of the flies that we were using, we were just using big muddler, big muddler patterns here. I know that's hard to see. But we used all the basic colors. We were so you can use any kind of muddler. We were using what we call maybe a bunny leech. Anything that's got a lot of movement really seemed to get these things attention. And so we were using greens, blacks. The greens work not bad. The blacks work pretty good here and there. But realistically, if I was going to have more flies in one color than any is white. And a lot of people say don't get caught up on a color. Get caught up on a profile, get caught up on a size, on maybe some flash. But you know what? I hate to say it. Like every time I put white back on, they seem to hit white. So something in their minds. I mean, until these fish can talk, we have no idea what they want. So if you find a color, don't be afraid to try anything. And if you find something that's working, you're sure it may not work for every day, but go back with it. If you're going to fish with confidence with it, fish it. And that's what it was.
So we've seen an explosion of trout spay, spay rods, two-handed fly rods, all the rest. Is this an appropriate place to bring something like that?
Yeah, single. Actually, you could. What I do a lot of single hand spay, and I would bring a 7-weight work maybe the single hand spay. It might be a little bit easier because God's River it's so big that a nice 13.5-foot 7-weight spay rod would work really great. But it's just you're going to pass over so many different small rivers within that big river. So if you have a single hand spay, that would work out really well and hit every little seam as though it's its own river. And that's really how that would work well on that also. But
just pick the whole thing apart.
Basically, yeah, and that's really all you can do. I found when you saw some rock croppings, some nice some rocks that were kind of flat that then just moved into some boulders. That seemed to be where they were hanging. So, and they would hang just at the beginning, just before the rapids started. They would just hang right there before into that fast water, where then it just starts to dip and the rapids start right above that, in that really fast water that's just starting to hit into those rapids. That's where these things hit. So the power and the mobility of these things are second to none. What
was your biggest fish of the week for a Brook trip?
Of course I lost the biggest fish of the week. I saw the tail on this thing, and it had to have been about 24, 25. It was probably 28 at the bar. I'm sure it was. But now realistically, I think it was 20. I think we did get one around 23, 22 and a half. So, but there was about two or three like that. So it's pretty cool. So.
All right. So let's go back to the lodge, Elk Island Lodge. How's the food?
Oh, remember I said the 2 F's, fly fishing and food. They put it together. And Greg, he said it's not a fine dining, but I think he said it. But they do it with class. It's meat and potatoes. So you get steak, you get ribs. I think we had ham. We had some stuffed chicken, and the breakfasts, eggs Benedict. You've got desserts. You've got fruit. And when you walk in, the food is amazing, and the staff, you just fall in love with them because they're just so nice, and they bend over backwards for everybody, and you're in a kind of a hall, and when you're there, and when you before dinner or even after dinner, you can go out to this big deck that overlooks God's Lake and watch the sunset with a cigar or with a cocktail or a Coke or whatever you want to do, and it's just a magical setting is what it is. It's a fantastic place. They got this huge fireplace there that just spells fishing. It spells hunting. It just spells adventure is what it does. They got a games room. They got satellite TV. They got Wi-Fi, satellite phones. They've got a full they got a full bar there that Anybody.
Why are you laughing, Jeff?
Anybody, any restaurant or any lodge would be proud of this bar because, and again, you see some guys coming in from Texas or whatever, and they say, "Well, I want, I got a little Jack. I'm looking for Jack. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for that," and they got it. So it's comfortable. It's fun. You're poop when you get back. There's most people are hitting the sack probably around 9:30 anyway. But if you wanted to stay up, there's you just stay up and have fun, play some cards, sit around, and you meet so many nice people there. But the food, I can't talk more about the food. The food was incredible. The setting was fantastic. The lodging was terrific. The hospitality they treat you like royalty. If you need something, or you feel safe. You're kind of far away from home, like not that far. Right? You're not in New Zealand or someplace or whatever, but you're far enough.
You're far in the north. Like you're north.
You're far north, and you feel safe. If anything happened, that runway is right there. You could get back if you needed to. If there was a family emergency, if there was something, it's awesome. It's hard to. I'll stop talking because I'll never stop.
Well, the cool thing is that I was fortunate enough to speak with Greg Dick, the owner, this morning, and he was telling me how busy he is, and that's why he couldn't join us tonight. And in discuss, I've never met the man. I feel like I have because I see him in the edit room and I see him, all over the shows and everything like that. I've never met him personally, but I get the feeling that Elk Island Lodge is his legacy. It's his baby. And anybody that wants to show up there and fish, whether it be brook trout, northern pike, lake trout, whitefish, he's going to make sure that you're going to want to come back. So when I get that feeling from an outfitter, I have to put it on my list of things to do and places to go in my fishing career too. Yeah. And I think that you just, eloquently echoed the same sentiments.
Yeah, big time. I mean, and so many of the fellows that I talked to, there was father and sons that have been coming. I mean, there was one fellow there, I think he was about 88. He had been coming with his son for so long. And another fellow there that wasn't there with his buddy, but he was spreading his ashes, his buddy's ashes there, because they had so much fun at Elk Island Lodge and the area there, God's Lake and God's River. They had so much fun. So that's where he wanted. So that's why he was there by himself, and he was there to do that for his friend. And so that's just the kind of place it is. It's homey, and you want to go back. Like I'm looking at those pictures of the brook trout. I'm looking at the river, the lake, the pike, the food, just whatever. You got to send me back, Mark. You got to send me back, man.
Well, I'll do my best. So in summary, Jeff, is there any other info that you feel like we need to let anybody know about so that they can have a safe, excellent, super fishy trip?
Yeah, actually, I didn't mention the weather. It is, you never know what you're going to get because you are a little bit farther up there. So I brought stuff for all 4 seasons. It sounds silly. I mean, I had t-shirts, obviously, thinking maybe we're going to be in t-shirts. I had rain gear. I did bring my waders, and if you get any kind of rain out there, but if you get any kind of wind, you're going to get splashed a lot. So the waders were perfect. You can bring some rain pants if you wanted, whatever. But the full chest waders for me was extra warmth, and it was just great for dryness. So and that'll really keep you dry. But there was one point it was and we were coming back. I think it might have been the last day, really windy, and we hit a cold front. And the first day we got there, it was around 22 degrees, 70-ish, 72 degrees or whatever. The last day was somewhere around 48, and this was July. Right. And now that was abnormal, but you know what we're looking like.
It's the north.
It's the north. Plus, with all the global stuff we got going on right now, you just never know what it's going to throw at you. So bring clothes for all 4 seasons, and that's awesome. And just lots of change of clothes because you're probably going to get wet. extra pair of glasses. I lost or I stepped on my glasses the second day, and so just that kind of stuff. Your main kind of grab, but the weather. Be very wary of the weather, because you're gonna encounter weather. So
awesome. So for good, and that's great advice, and I'm sure that Elk Island Lodge has stuff for people that may have forgotten something or what have you, that they can back you up. So they've got you covered for clothing, tackle, fish, food. Lovely. Everything is perfect. So for those who are interested in learning more about fishing in northern Manitoba or in Manitoba proper, you can check out the social media side of the province of Manitoba at Fishing and Hunting in Manitoba, as well as #FishNB and HuntNB. For more on our good friend Jeff Parks and the guiding service that he provides in Southern Ontario for trout, check him out at calmwatersflyfishing.ca. Jeff, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your Wednesday night to join us for this. Elk Island Lodge you asked me to send you back. I think you got to plow through me to get there, buddy. I'm not kidding, because I think I'm going there first.
I don't blame you. No, thank you. Yeah, no, it was a great. It's awesome. I have to say, it's awesome. I mean, I love guiding. I've been fly fishing for 40 years, and this new venture of the host with a new fly fisher is just an absolute blast. So I'm having fun. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Amazing. So if you want to learn more, check out godslake.ca for everything Elk Island Lodge. And don't forget to check us out again at www.thenewflyfisher.com. I am going to be at the Denver Fly Fishing Show starting Friday, this week, Saturday and Sunday. If you're in the area, please stop by, and definitely, if you want to learn more about fishing in northern Manitoba, I'm more than happy to help you. Remember, adventure's out there. All you need to do is go and find it. And what better way than to do it with a fly rod in your hand? From all of us here at the New Fly Fisher, thanks for watching. Jeff, Parksy, thanks for taking the time, brother.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, man, we'll talk to you soon. Good night, everybody.